currently in the Triangle 83. AccuWeather real feel is 92 degrees. Tom Campbell is the moderator of NC Spin, ncspin.com. And, of course, you could check him out here in the Triangle 6:30 on TV5 on Sundays and on Fox 50 at 8:30 on Sunday mornings. Check your listings, ncspin.com as well. I know we have a lot of folks that come into the Triangle from Charlotte and Greensboro and from the East on a daily basis, especially Tuesdays, it seems. And they are asking me, well, when's NC Spin? Come on and check it out on the web. Come on, get on your tablet, folks. Tom, how are you?
I'm doing well.
These
people coming into Raleigh on Tuesdays, is this to come see the circus over on Jones Street?
They don't necessarily maybe come to see the circus, but I think they're trying to bend the ear of some people involved in the circus. A lot of interests in town to try to have their case heard, if you will. So, Tom, before we get into this House version of the NC Connect plan and how it differs and how it's similar to the governor's plan, I just wanted to get a quick blush reaction. Dana Cope from Scenic. I didn't realize they had just 55,000 members. I say just. It seemed like they had more members than that, but 55,000 folks were essentially paying for quite a lavish lifestyle.
Well, I got to tell you, I have been a member of Scenic back when I worked in the state treasurer's office, because Treasurer Boyles always felt like it was a good organization and was worthy of the support. Not from a standpoint of being a union or anything like that, but just from a standpoint that it was a worthwhile organization. I think it's a tragedy that so many hardworking state employees had this happen. And quite candidly, I think the lesson that has to be learned here, and it doesn't make any difference whether you are on the state employees board or a church board or a school board or whatever it happens to be, the lesson is you've got to be vigilant. Even when you've got somebody who has been a long time employee and executive and so forth like that, you've got to constantly be asking questions, looking at what gets spent, what gets done, why it gets done. And candidly, I think that what had happened was that that board had allowed Dana to run amok. They weren't asking questions. They weren't doing their fiduciary duties to the other members of Scenic. And I think it's a shame, and I think they paid for it. They will not get their money reimbursed, I'm sure, even though they may win a judgment in court. I just think it's a sad commentary, because the dues that these members paid obviously was not going for what it was intended. And I think it's just a sad commentary. Scenic is better than that. I think they need to get a message out, frankly, not only to their own members, but to the public in North Carolina, that they're appalled by all of this. They are better than this, and that they're working hard to regain the trust and confidence and to be a beneficiary to state employees. Well
stated. Tom Campbell with us. Let's jump into the activities over there on Jones Street.
This has to be, this House bond plan, by the way, has to be one of the more fascinating stories from a very unusual legislative session so far.
Take the folks through what exactly happened yesterday, and then let's delve into the weeds on this thing.
Well, okay, let me say that to begin with, it is very obvious that the House and the governor were working together to put this proposal together. I think Representative Arp's a good guy, and I think Speaker Moore is a good guy, and I think they were, they have their hearts in the right places, but it's fairly obvious that there is collusion, probably is not the right word, but certainly some agreement with the governor and the speaker's office, which is very interesting. A $4 billion package, finance package, which frankly, in my personal opinion, I think is probably of a more appropriate size to what needs to be done than maybe even the governor proposed with his $2 billion bond package. because the needs are great. We've been ignoring our public infrastructure in North Carolina for more than a decade.
I want to ask you a very dumb question, though. It seems obvious. If they were in cahoots, House leadership and the governor, why not have the governor come out and revise his plan?
Well, here's the thing. This game ain't over with yet. The other part of this that I think is fascinating politics is the House is siding with the governor against the Senate. The Senate's already said they don't want to borrow this much money.
Correct.
The Senate's already said they're not in favor of this large sum of bonded indebtedness and so forth like that. I think Speaker Moore and the House caucus, Republican caucus, is playing hardball with the Senate. And they're saying, okay, you want to pass strong legislation, doing things like cutting taxes, revamping the distribution for sales taxes. We can play this game too. So I think there's some gamesmanship going on here. I think one of the things that is interesting and that will likely happen is that they are going to force the hand of the Senate to do something, particularly if there's enough public pressure. Now, I noticed that the North Carolina Chamber of Commerce, and by the way, I applaud them, came out and is spending money urging the legislature to do the road bonds. Of course, theirs was roads, and the House version of the plan only has about $400 million for roads. I think both houses are now finally coming around to something that we've been talking about for over 15 years, ever since the Highway Trust Fund was established back in '89. Just to drop back for a second, when the Highway Trust Fund was established, it did away with some sales taxes that had been previously collected and applied to the general fund budget revenues of North Carolina. So in order to be able to make that good, the architects of the Highway Trust Fund back in the late 80s said, okay, we're going to set up a transfer from the gas taxes and the Highway Trust Fund over to the general fund to make them whole, to assure that they're not losing money. Now, it started off being something like $100 million a year, and it's grown now to around $250 million a year in transfers, so that the gas taxes that are being collected, which purportedly are going to build and maintain roads, $250 million a year of it is going over to the general fund. So I think both the House and the Senate wisely and appropriately, and I applaud them both for saying they want to do away with this transfer. That'll be a big step in helping to build more roads and maintain more roads right there.
I don't want to run out of time here. Is there enough in this House version that you've been able to see? I mean, without increasing taxes, can you, and without raiding the highway fund, are there enough things that can be cut or money reappropriated within the budget to maybe fill in some of the gaps in what the House is proposing? When it,
as far as roads are concerned?
As far as, just infrastructure, roads, infrastructure, et cetera.
Well, no, they're going to have to pass a bond package. I mean, I think the question, truthfully, the question is sooner or later, when is some legislature going to have the cojones to be able to say, our public infrastructure is badly neglected, we got to do something about it. The House was absolutely correct. You can't borrow money any cheaper than you're going to be able to borrow it right now. And the cost of construction for these projects and renovations for these projects is only going to go up. We should have done this 10 years ago. We've been in and out of cyclical budget economies. And so as a result, the legislature in their wisdom decided not to do anything about some of these things. Sooner or later, we got to address infrastructure.
So what is the Senate's gripe if you can get money on the cheap now?
They don't want to see this much debt. And besides, I think there's some ego involved here. They want to be the architects. They want to be the ones that made the grand gesture and made the decision what's going to be done. There's a tremendous amount of ego over in that Senate right now. And the testosterone level is just incredible.
Quite high is what you're saying.
Yeah, very high. So I I think the House probably put forward a plan which they knew was not going to fly. It's going to go to conference. Incidentally, funny things happen when budgets go to conference, and more times than not, if you'll study them, they end up with a higher number than either house started off with.
Funny how that works, isn't it?
It is. So it's going to go to conference, and I think that it's going to be interesting. $4 billion as an infrastructure plan, I'm not so sure that that's going to fly, but I think it's a good step. I think the House was very wise politically. I think they've made some good moves here, which, by the way, I commend first-term Speaker Moore. I would not have thought this would have been something that he would have put forward, but I think this is a good plan.
Tom, we've got to go. We're not short on thoughts on this, but we're short on time. Tom Campbell, NC Spin, ncspin.com. Thank you so much.
Talking about it this week, by the way, on the show.